meeting of the Rhode Island State Board of Elections will come to order. It is 2:04 p.m., March 21st. Would you please read the roll, Madam Secretary?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chairwoman Maderas,
Here.
Vice Chairman Pierce, Member Bettenker,
Here.
Member DeSimone, Member Johnson, Member Scholl,
Present.
Member West,
Present.
Executive Director Robert Reposa,
Present.
Legal Counsel Raymond Carchia.
Present.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We do have a quorum. We will begin. Item number 1, the board will discuss and vote on the recommendations from the Legislative Committee on legislation submitted by other persons and entities to the General Assembly in 2023. And I think we should probably begin by hearing from the chair of that committee. Would you agree? Mr. Scholes.
Oh, thank you very much. As the committee consisting of Sal Bettencourt, Lou DeSimone, and Jen Johnson, and me, we convened last Friday, the 17th, and we were supported by Miguel Nunez and Bob Reposa, and we discussed 17 bills, 33 bills, House and Senate. This is in addition to all the other bills that we have looked at during the course of the last 2 months. And the number of bills that were proposed in the Senate are 23. The number of bills proposed in the House are 42. And we previously reviewed and approved by the board 19. So on the 17th, we looked at 16 Senate bills, which had 13, we corresponded to 13 House bills. The remaining 3 new Senate bills are standalone bills. And the number of new House bills were 13, and they have a corresponding new Senate bill. So the remaining 17 new House bills are standalone bills. So we looked at this thing, and the staff had looked at all this legislation and came up with their recommendations. And the number of bills supported by the staff are 8. The number of new bills opposed by the staff are 3. The number of new bills that were staff had no position were 35. So we went through the whole thing, and I'm not going to go through every single bill, but there were 3 bills that ended up with a tie vote on our committee on a 2-2, where we didn't, which meant that no action was taken. The bills that were, those 3 bills were the same bills that the staff took no position on. So 2 of us took the position of supporting, 2 of us took a position opposing. So I'd like to bring those 3 bills up for the full board so we can vote on those and decide whether we're going to submit that as part of this package to the General Assembly.
Very good. Well, thank you for your work and the work of that legislative subcommittee. I'm thinking that a good way to proceed may be to look at the work you've done and that you all agreed upon, and perhaps endorse those positions that you took as just one motion. Would that make sense at this point?
That would make perfect sense.
Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to approve the recommendations of the Legislative Committee with reference to the bills that were supported, opposed, and no position taken? Moved by Ms. Bettenker. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. West. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That's a unanimous vote of the board. So the first bill then, I suppose we should start with. I don't know if you want to.
Sure. The first bill is Senate Bill 380. The act would amend certain election statutes to require ballot questions to be written in plain language, reasonably calculated to be understood by persons with middle school reading comprehension skills. The
Okay.
staff took no position. The committee took position 2 for and 2 against.
Okay, would someone who was on that committee like to explain their position?
Sure. So it's 2 of us. They left us all alone. So I don't just fully want to speak for Commissioner Johnson, but I think we're in agreement of, I think the bill itself, it doesn't specify, right, what this idea of middle school language means. Nevertheless, it was to us, it's an important position to say, and many of us agreed when we get sometimes in the mail these packets, sometimes we can't understand them. And so I think statistically nationally, like the average American has a third or fourth grade reading level.
Mm.
So I think that's something important to keep in mind. So I think the idea of the legislation is important. I think as not just our role, but the Secretary of State and everyone else, everyone who's involved in voting, it should be important that it's accessible in every way. So I think that's why it was important to us to at least support the notion of this legislation with maybe amendments, but
So the idea was,
absolutely. I think it's
Palatable.
really important just for access purposes.
okay, understood?
And those opposed to it took the position that this was sort of nebulous language. What is meant by middle school reading comprehension skills? There's no standard by which you can test that. I understand that you want to make it simplified, but I think the language was improperly drafted. And for that reason, we opposed it. At least two of us opposed it.
Okay, so it seems as if there are positions that make sense on both sides, so we should probably decide at this point whether we want to take a position or not on this bill.
I think that if they clarify it, the language in it, as far as determining what is middle school reading apprehension or comprehension skills, I could understand, I could vote for the bill if they're not going to, and I don't know if they're going to do
Right.
this, so this makes it difficult. But if we do what they meant by that, then I understand, yes, I would be in favor of the bill, but as of right now, no, I'd have to oppose.
The way it's currently written,
Yes, the way it's coming.
you're saying that you would oppose the, okay, would you consider taking no position at all based on the fact that it is nebulous and,
Well, really, I would hope that they would change it, but if they don't, but in the meantime, I think I'm going to take the position of oppose the bill because of that.
okay. All right, so do we have a motion then regarding this particular bill at this point?
I make a motion that we oppose this bill.
Mr. West moves to oppose. Do we have a second? Seconded by Mr. Scholes. Any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
So we have 3 in favor and 1 opposed, and the motion carries.
So there'll be no position or opposed.
It looks like we're opposed
Okay, all right.
based on the motion that was made.
Okay.
Okay, so the second one, Mr.
The
Scholes?
second bill,
Excuse me, Mr. DeSimone has joined the meeting.
oh, the second bill is Senate Bill 608. And this is also House Bill H5770, a companion bill. This bill was really a joint resolution would propose to the voters of the state a constitutional amendment which would remove the 30-day state and local residency requirement and require the voters to be registered by, on, or election day. It would also provide that no person would be eligible to vote or to file a declaration of candidacy who's not been a qualified elector in Rhode Island for at least 30 days. And we had a little discussion on this. There were 2 in favor and 2 opposed. So we bring it before the full board.
Okay, so would you like to explain your,
Sure.
I'm sorry.
No,
you're-
it's fine. Jenny left me
you're-
alone. That's okay. Yeah, so I think Miguel mentioned some concern around this being a constitutional change rather than legislation. And I'm wondering, and I don't know if this is proper at all. I know that there are people here who have been part of this legislation, and so I don't know if this is a time to hear from them. If it's not, just let me know. But I'm when I was asking questions that day, I think it's partly concerning. It seems like the board sort of no position or opposition to this legislation is focused on being a constitutional amendment, which has only happened in one state. However, I think the work of the legislation can be really important. And it's been talked about for a long time. And so I don't know if this is a time to hear from people. You can tell me no. but experts are important.
Okay, well, we'd like to hear from the board members first.
Yeah.
Mr. Scholes?
Well, like I say, it was a require constitutional change to that, and we think that the residency required served us well in the past. We saw no need for a change for the 30-day requirement, which will give everyone notice that they have to be at least a registered voter for 30 days before they can file.
Mhm. Okay. Do either of you have any, Mr. West, Mr. DeSimone, any comments,
Well, I
concerns?
mean, I would concur with the subcommittee chair, that if it's going to require a constitutional amendment, then so be it. I didn't, I was obviously one of the oppositions to support, so that there was no position on the bill. I don't have an opposition to taking no position, obviously. Yeah, I think the chairman phrased it fine.
Mr. West, do you have any comments?
No, I think what's said is fine.
I'm actually thinking that, from my point of view, I think taking no position would be a better stance than opposing this bill. That would be my thinking. But I would leave that up to the board to decide what their position would want to be.
Well, we ended up taking no position because of the tie, but I think
Right.
in the circumstances, we'll just move that we take no position on this bill.
We have a motion from Mr. Scholes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. DeSimone that we take no position on this bill. Any discussion by anyone on the board?
I think, this will be, I think this is a really important and interesting legislation. I hope that us not taking a position isn't a position in general, right? I think, so I hope that if this bill does not pass this year, that we have more time next legislative session to talk about it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, do we have a motion and a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so we have 4 in favor and 1 opposed. Motion carries.
Okay, Madam Chair,
The third,
the last bill, the third one, is Senate Bill S638, which is corresponding to House Bill H5959. This act would allow citizens of a city or town who are at least 16 years of age to register to vote and to vote in school committee elections in municipalities where school committees are elected entities. So we had a heated discussion on this one again, and there were 2 in favor and there were 2 opposed, so which took no position. So we bring it before the full board.
Great.
okay. Did you want to comment, Ms. Bittencourt?
No, I think it was that we went back and forth on this specific thing focused on school boards, and because young people are affected by it, I think that's why we saw it as an important principle too.
Certainly, and it also engages young people
Absolutely.
to vote. So I understand the thinking behind it. Mr. Scholes, did you want to say?
Well,
express your
I
concern?
opposed it. I mean, I understand. I had a child who's 25 years old, so he went through the teenage years. So I understand thinking of teenagers, okay? And they vote based on a popularity, okay? They don't really delve into the issues. So 16, I mean, you can drive, but I think 18 is a good age for people to know what the issues are and to register and actually vote. I think 16 is too young to have a say to the administration of schools. Not to say that they can have an opportunity to express their thoughts. I mean, if this bill said that a 16-year-old can be a liaison on the board, that'd be fine. But to actually be a voting member, I thought it was a little bit too much. And for that reason, I opposed the bill.
Okay, any other discussion, Mr. DeSimone?
I also oppose the bill, more on a budgetary stance than anything else. In most of the cities and towns, the school department is the bulk of a budget for a city or town, particularly with the smaller towns. To have a 16-year-old voting for or against a school committee member, I agree with its popularity, but I also agree that they're stakeholders in the school department from the standpoint that they receive an education from the school. They're not a stakeholder in regard to paying for that education.
Understood.
So I had a little concern with that. Though I can understand the purpose of the legislation and to, sort of give those students a voice. I just think there should be maybe some other limited way to do it. And maybe that legislation can be tweaked in the future. But I mean, from the standpoint of the students having a voice, I can see what my fellow commissioners' concerns were, but I was in opposition to it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. West, do you have any comment?
Yes, I do know that in some cities and towns, they do have representation from the schools, the high school, on the committee, liaison type thing. But I have to agree that I don't think 16-year-old is the right mental, maybe there are some that are able to take on our responsibility, but I don't think everyone is, and I think 18, where we are now, is the right age for them to have a say in how things are work, because then they're gonna be out in the workforce a lot. Them are gonna be paying taxes, they're gonna have more of a say, they're able to vote. So I think that's the age that we should have that.
So what is the action the board would like to take? Should we take an action opposing or in favor, or no position at all, I guess is the question. So do we have a motion?
Yeah, I would take a position of, I
Motion.
move that we take no position on the bill.
Mr. Schultz moves no position be taken. Do we have a second? Mr. West seconds that motion. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Right.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so we have one in opposition, Ms. Bettenker, and the other four are in favor. The motion carries. Again, thank you for the work that you did. I know it was a lot to go through, so I appreciate it. I know we all do. We're on item number 2. The board may discuss and vote upon the submission of Sub A in order to modify Legislative Bill H 5960, pending before the General Assembly in accordance with the language attached to this agenda. So we will hear from Miguel Nunez on this item. Thank you, Miguel.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Regarding the Sub-A for House Bill 5960, regarding the tabulation of write-in votes, this bill was sponsored by Representative Camille Vela Wilkinson on behalf of the Board of Elections. And during the meeting on the House Committee on State Government and Elections, in which I was in attendance on March 3rd and testified for this bill, several members of the committee expressed concern that a person could potentially receive more write-in votes than the highest vote getter, but had not filed a declaration of intent by the deadline, which would be on the Friday before the election day. They suggested that language be included to request the write-in votes be tabulated if the number of write-in votes cast in an office exceeds the number of votes cast for the highest vote getter. Language reflecting this suggestion by the committee members has been incorporated into the Sub-A presented to you today. And I'm happy to answer any questions about those changes before you discuss and vote upon this agenda item.
Okay, thank you. Board members have any questions of Miguel concerning what he just outlined for us? Do we wish to take an action relative to the Sub-A that's been presented? Mr. DeSimone,
So
sure.
the specific language,
Sure.
Miguel,
Yes.
where it appears on the document.
So specifically, the changes are under exact section. Seventeen 1931, which is the second page of the draft that you have in front of you. So I'll read the entire portion in red and then indicate where the new changes start. So halfway down in that paragraph, you have the word nor, which is underlined in red. Nor shall any irregular ballot be voted for any person who has not been qualified under the requirements of 1714-18, unless said vote is cast for an office in which no eligible candidate appears on the ballot for that office, or And this is where the new language was inserted in discussions with Ray Marcascio and Bob. Or the number of write-in votes cast in a contest for any one individual is equal to or exceeds the number of votes cast for every eligible winning candidate appearing on the ballot in that contest.
Thank you.
And that was the extent of the changes.
Understood.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I would move, if there's no other discussion, I'd move approval of the changes in the sub-A that's requested in item 2.
We have a motion by Mr. Di Simone. Do we have a second?
I think Bob has some
Bob, did you-
information to share
did you
with the
wanna-
Senate versions of these.
Thank you.
The, five of your 6 Senate bills have not been issued yet. They are waiting after this meeting today, so that the Senate bill that corresponds with this bill will be introduced if you approve these changes. So a sub-A will not be required on the Senate bill.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any questions of either Miguel or Mr. Reposa? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. Di Simone. Do we have a second to his motion?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. West. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, it's unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. Item number 3, I guess we're pulling from today's agenda and we are putting it on the agenda of April 4th. Thank you for that. There being no further business before the board, do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Mr. Schultz. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Bettenker. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we are adjourned at 2:26 by unanimous vote.
Thank you, everyone. No,